All right, it's Tuesday with Illinois in Focus Daily. Good morning. I'm Greg Bishop with you each and every weekday here for the Center Square with Illinois in Focus Daily. We've got a ton to tackle this morning, including a live interview with Republican gubernatorial candidate Darren Bailey. He will join us just in about 12 minutes or so. But first, we got to hear what Governor J.B. Pritzker had to say yesterday, along with Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul, all discussing the expectation of 100 military troops coming to Chicago to help the Trump administration get public safety under control, according to the administration. But the Democrats are saying it's merely provocation and an authoritarian move. So we'll hear about that coming up. But of course, we'll get that live reaction from Darren Bailey here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Don't forget, we've got the headlines that you can get in your inbox each and every weekday morning. Go to thecentersquare.com/Illinois. Click on newsletter, fill it out. You'll get that email free for you each and every weekday morning with the latest headlines. And you can also find the podcasts at thecentersquare.com, where you can catch the daily show as a podcast, or you can listen to the weekend edition and so much more. So go to thecentersquare.com. All right, we'll get right into Governor J.B. Pritzker talking about 100 military troops expected for Chicago. That's next here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, editor of the Center Square, Illinois, right here each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus Daily.
More than 200 violent rioters were at a Chicago ICE facility chanting, "Arrest ICE, shoot ICE." At least one had a gun.
I am outraged by what's happening, and we're seeing that ICE just doesn't give a damn. And neither does the President of the United States.
Every day, ICE agents make the community safer, because every public safety threat, every national security threat we arrest makes that community safer. It's simple. It's simple math. But they hate President Trump more than they love their communities.
There's just a mix of the different voices in this conversation about possible military troops in Chicago to conduct public safety efforts, while Democrats in Illinois and Chicago say it's just an effort to entice and encourage chaos. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, editor of Illinois at thecentersquare.com. Go check out the headlines at thecentersquare.com each and every weekday morning. You can wake up with us here for Illinois in Focus Daily. So yesterday we reviewed some of the viral videos of protesters clashing in the streets with federal law enforcement, with lots of video cameras all over the place. Clearly there was some obstruction that was going on, with people standing in the middle of the road blocking federal vehicles from conducting federal law enforcement, and several arrests as well. We had Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General, release a video over the weekend, and here's just some of that.
More than 200 violent rioters were at a Chicago ICE facility chanting, "Arrest ICE, shoot ICE." At least one had a gun.
I am outraged by what's happening, and
One had a gun. These are not peaceful protests. These are coordinated attacks by radical extremists, and they end now. Anyone who threatens or assaults our federal officers will be arrested and charged federally, not in some liberal state court.
So Bondi announcing that over the weekend. Then you had the Department of Homeland Security announce that 5 individuals were arrested and 2 of them had guns. And now you've got the U.S. Department of Justice for the Northern District of Illinois with this headline: 5 individuals charged in federal courts in Chicago with assaulting or resisting federal agents engaged in immigration enforcement operations. So it goes on to say that this happened over the weekend in Broadview, Illinois. The defendants were among a crowd of people who descended in front of the entrance of the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility Saturday evening. In front of the entrance of that facility, the charges allege that the defendants made criminal physical contact against the agents who were trying to ensure safe passage for detainees and vehicles getting in and out of the building. 2 of the defendants possessed loaded firearms while assaulting federal agents, according to the federal complaint. Under my leadership, the Chicago U.S. Attorney's Office will take swift action, Andrew Boutros said. He's the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois. Went on to discuss who these individuals are. The defendants: 31-year-old from Chicago, 30-year-old from Chicago, 26-year-old from Oak Park, 70-year-old from Rockford, and a 21-year-old from Medina, Illinois. And you can see some of the charges there. One, getting felony assault of an officer, allegedly possessing a loaded handgun. Another, felony assault of an officer, allegedly possessing a handgun. Another, felony assault of an officer, allegedly grabbed the agent's helmet and pulled the agent down, allegedly told the agents, "I'll expletive kill you right now." 70-year-old charged with felony assault of a federal officer, allegedly making physical contact with the agent's arm while the agent attempted to extend the safety perimeter around the facility. And another individual charged with forcibly resisting, opposing, impeding, and interfering with a federal officer. That's a misdemeanor. So you've got all of these charges here announced by the Department of Justice yesterday. And this came as Governor J.B. Pritzker was holding a news conference, making an announcement that he became aware that the Trump administration is looking to bring troops, federal troops, into Chicago.
The Illinois National Guard received word that the Department of Homeland Security has sent a memo to the Department of War seeking the deployment of 100 military troops to Illinois, claiming a need for the protection of ICE personnel and facilities. What I have been warning of is now being realized. One thing is clear: none of what Trump is doing is making Illinois safer.
So Pritzker talked about he is getting wind that 100 military troops coming to Chicago, and he said already ICE is militarized, and he gave examples of people being stopped on the streets, being asked for their papers, and tamale vendors being targeted, and people being targeted for their skin color.
What would we call it? If federal agents marched down busy streets, harassing civilians and demanding their papers, what would we say? I don't think we'd have any trouble calling it what it is: authoritarianism.
He went on to criticize the Trump administration, saying that they are targeting people based off their skin color.
They're not targeting violent criminals or gang members. They're arresting tamale vendors and delivery men and shaking down families. Donald Trump and Kristi Noem and Tom Homan said they were targeting the worst of the worst criminals. They lied, and they continue to lie. 60% of the individuals that ICE has taken in Illinois this year have no criminal convictions of any kind.
Are they here illegally, though? Because that's the ultimate question that ICE, at least, is interested in, not just with criminal detainers, but also civil detainers. And Pritzker had a message for ICE.
With one voice, we are telling this unwarranted and unconstitutional occupation by ICE and potentially by military troops to get out of Chicago. You are not helping us.
He goes on with some Q&A. We'll get to that in a moment, but I wanted to flash back to Tom Homan in Dallas earlier this month at the State Freedom Caucus Network annual summit, and he explained why ICE is, quote, flooding the zone because sanctuary cities aren't cooperating with law enforcement on a federal level.
Then you got these sanctuary mayors and governors that say, well, we're a sanctuary city because we're a welcoming community. We want illegal aliens, victims and witnesses of crime to feel comfortable reporting crime to the police without fear or working with ICE. That's victims and witnesses of crime don't want the bad guy in their neighborhood either. That's common sense. So sanctuary cities are going to get exactly what they don't want. More agents in the neighborhood, more collateral arrests, more worksite investigations. Because we can't find them in the community, we'll find them at the worksite because they all got jobs. So congratulations. Now they're bitching about it. Well, hang on tight, because you ain't seen anything yet.
So is that what we're seeing here? The increased efforts of federal law enforcement to enforce immigration law being a symptom of the state and the city and the county being sanctuary cities for these particular activities, non-citizens, illegal immigrants being able to operate within the society. So you've got the ongoing Democrat lineup here yesterday in Chicago. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, he seemed to all of a sudden be concerned about the use of tax dollars and where they're going, and he claims that there's a corruption here.
More than 90% of the immigration detention centers are run by private and for-profit corporations. The Trump administration has already engaged in no-bid contracts with private prison contractors across the United States. Executives at private prison firms are calling this a gold rush, as their stocks have soared by as much as 80%.
Goes on to talk about the money involved in all of this and the profits for the private prisons. And it's interesting in Illinois, it's not just the Trust Act that prohibited local and state police from cooperating with ICE. You also had a Way Forward Act that increased those prohibitions some more, and other measures that Illinois has implemented prohibiting local sheriffs from allowing local county jails to be used by ICE when they have a detention and they're processing somebody. They would possibly go to a county sheriff and say, hey, do you have a few beds? We've got some illegal immigrants here we need to house while we get them processed. And state law prohibits that. So where else are you going to put these detainees, these illegal immigrants who are detained by ICE, getting processed for deportation? Can't put them in a taxpayer-funded county jail, so they're going to have to go into a private prison. So interesting to hear that, but they are also worried about the liability costs of federal officers possibly crossing the line and getting sued, and the taxpayer costs there. Johnson's worried about the taxpayers.
By the time this is over, there will be hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars wasted in settlements related to the excessive use of force and the unconstitutional actions of this administration.
It's interesting Johnson raises that as the city of Chicago right now is over budget for their police misconduct payouts. They're looking at $230 million or something in payouts, and that just blasted through their something like $80 million budget. So interesting to hear that yesterday. You also had Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul there talking about how this is all seems to him to be a ploy by the Trump administration to spark and bring about chaos.
What the president is hoping to do is foment chaos by inciting out-of-control protests. So I urge Illinoisans, don't take the bait. There is no emergency in Chicago. Don't help him create one.
The governor, taking some questions yesterday, acknowledged that there is no communication going back and forth between the White House and local authorities.
They're not communicating with the city of Chicago, with the state of Illinois, with Cook County, with Broadview, with anybody. They are going at this because, Greg Bavino is putting up his TikTok videos, and it's giving a misimpression of what's happening on the ground. We have peaceful protesters, as they have all across the country, by the way. People are peacefully protesting. And we have, in response to that, chemical agents being fired at people. Indeed, people who are doing nothing more than sitting in their cars. Reporters being detained. So the provocation is coming from ICE, and with clear intent to have the federal government send military troops.
So the governor also acknowledged that there's no cooperation going on between the two. And fired off.
Terrific when they get somebody who's a criminal and take them off the streets. Fantastic. But this is not the way law enforcement ought to be allowed to operate. It's not constitutional to just round up the usual suspects, just to stop people because they're black or brown and demand papers. And if they don't have papers, to detain them and in some cases disappear them. And I mean, I am outraged by what's happening. And we're seeing that ICE just doesn't give a damn. And neither does the President of the United States. He's doing nothing to intervene to make it better. Clearly, he's the one who ordered them to do what they're doing on the ground, and they're carrying out his orders.
And then Homan, flashing back to earlier this month, again, he said they're flooding the zone because the sanctuary cities aren't cooperating with federal officials enforcing the law that's on the books.
So President Trump committed, we're going to prioritize sanctuary cities. I agree 100%. We talked about it. Why? Because we know there's a problem. We know they're releasing public safety threats every day. It's like sending the firemen to the biggest fire. That's what we're doing. It's not because they're blue. It's because they're sanctuary cities and they're releasing criminals every hour. So that's where we're going. That's where we're going to flood the zone.
Homan went on to try to rationalize in his head why Democrats are so vocal against ICE coming into their communities to get illegal immigrants.
Every day, ICE agents make the community safer because every public safety threat, every national security threat we arrest makes that community safer. It's simple. It's simple math. But they hate President Trump more than they love their communities. There's no other reason. I can't think why would you not join forces with us?
Much more to come on this story. The governor's got several other events today that some opportunity to hear some more Q&A from the governor. So we'll be monitoring that and see what else happens outside Broadview. And keep you updated here with Illinois in Focus Daily. Each and every weekday morning, I'm Greg Bishop, editor of The Center Square, right here on YouTube with Illinois in Focus Daily. Stand by, getting a live guest lined up. Darren Bailey joining us next.
I am. Can you hear me okay?
We believe that standing up, speaking out, calling on the citizenry to protest, that all of that does have a real positive effect.
What the president is hoping to do is foment chaos by inciting out-of-control protests. So I urge Illinoisans, don't take the bait.
It's Governor J.B. Pritzker and Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul talking about the possibility of military troops and chaos on the streets and what exactly is going on with federal immigration enforcement in Illinois. And to react to that more and the prospects of military troops in Chicago is Republican gubernatorial candidate Darren Bailey. He joins us now here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Darren, thanks for taking time with us. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about here, but we've got, let's just face it, an election coming up as well. So I appreciate you taking the time. I want to, first start off with your response to, what's going on in Chicago and the prospect of seeing military troops on the streets of Chicago.
Well, thank you very much. I've been talking about failed leadership for a long time, and I think this is the epitome of what failed leadership looks like. I think it's an absolute embarrassment and a disgrace for the people of Illinois, and how shameful it is for the residents of Chicago that federal troops have to come in to protect ICE agents who are doing their job. ICE agents who are here to round up and find the most dangerous of the people that are here illegally. I mean, Greg, in what other nation can you think of, and I'd love it if somebody would tell me where this is at, that you or I or anyone else could enter in undocumented and live without, any recourse, and yet maybe even get benefits thereof from the tax-paying citizens. I mean, this is concerning. And so let's back up and take another look. Obviously, on Labor Day weekend, we kind of hit a high of over 58 shootings and 13 people killed in Chicago. Even this past weekend, we had over 11 shootings and 4 people killed. Let's take a look at Washington, D.C., where the National Guard has been at for the last month. I don't know if anybody realizes this or not, but this past weekend, matter of fact, I believe the last 2 weekends, there were 0 reports of any shootings in Washington, D.C. So we've got a problem. And J.B. Pritzker, if he was cooperating with the military, if he was cooperating with ICE, if Brandon Johnson would put more police on the streets, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. But unfortunately, the people, the residents, the businesses of Chicago set in peril, and what a shame it is to the great state of Illinois.
Darren, you've got the governor and the attorney general saying that Trump's merely wanting to provoke people, calling it authoritarianism. Does this really just come down to something that Tom Homan said, and we talked about in the previous segment? He says, listen, it's the sanctuary cities where they're releasing individuals here illegally after holding them in jail because they're not cooperating with federal officials. Couldn't this be solved if Illinois somehow changed the Trust Act and the Way Forward Act and other sanctuary policies?
That has to be a day one issue when I'm elected governor, that nonsense stops. You're exactly right. The Trust Act is a farce. I mean, all of this, J.B. Pritzker, Brandon Johnson, and everything that the Democrat legislature has enacted up to this point is simply to protect those who are here illegally. And by doing that, they're protecting the most dangerous elements of those people that are putting fear into our streets in Chicago. Illinois deserves better.
With the prospect of the military on the streets, where do you see this going from here? Obviously, in other areas, we've seen in L.A., bricks being thrown, vehicles being lit on fire. In Portland, there's federal troops expected there to protect federal assets and personnel. We've seen on the streets of Broadview people impeding traffic. Law enforcement, federal law enforcement, trying to get through, and even detainees. But you also have the violence that's been brought against ICE. Down in Dallas, you had that shooting that happened. So where do you see this going from here? And how do we try to keep it as civil as possible?
Well, I think we need to stop the dangerous rhetoric that is coming out of J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson's mouths. We know this man is bent on running for president in 2028. So he has a nationwide voice now. And I think all of these incidents that you mentioned are, promulgated by his speech. And that needs to stop. And I think all we have to do is look back to Washington, D.C., that within a week of the National Guard showing up on the streets, the mayor there, who doesn't like President Trump, was thanking President Trump for getting involved. And I think we look at places like that. D.C. is a perfect example, one of the only places so far where this plan has been enacted, with the National Guard coming in, working alongside the police just to restore law and order. And I think that in time, we'll see the exact same results in Chicago. The people, I don't even know that these people that are throwing the bricks and causing the ICE agents, we don't even know if they're actual, citizens of Chicago. For all we know, they could be paid protesters brought in from the outside to disrupt. We've seen that before. So J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson hold complete responsibility for this. In my opinion, they hold complete responsibility for every shooting and every death that's taking place this year. And what a shame that how he refuses to work with President Trump, who I believe has made it perfectly clear that all he desires is to protect the people of Chicago. And after all, that is government's number one role, to protect the people.
We're talking with Darren Bailey, a Republican candidate for governor. We'll talk some politics here in just a moment, but just on the issues, the public safety component here. You've got Pritzker saying he wants more funding for violence interruption. You've seen the budgets, Darren. You've voted against them as a state rep, as a state senator. You blasted Pritzker spending in 2022 when you ran against him for governor. What's the best approach here to interrupt violence? Is it to give it to nonprofit organizations who hand it over to former felons, and then we get stories like we've seen over the past few weeks of so-called peacekeepers being charged with crimes?
It's to simply overturn the Safety Act and let law enforcement do their job. I mean, let's think back to when all this started, and I think we have to look at that one act and realize that that's where a lot of this began. Police officers have retired. They've left. Police forces have been diminished. Cook County in Chicago is a perfect example. We need police, men and women on the streets being able to do their job. As for the funding, just think about every problem that comes up, mental health. And right now, here we are talking about this violence. J.B. Pritzker thinks that throwing more money is the solution. It's not. I ran for state rep in 2017 because of the 32% tax increase. The Illinois budget in 2017 was $32 billion. And after the new budget was passed, it was inflated to $34 billion. Today, 8 years later, that budget sits at $56 billion. And what are we getting for that additional 20 plus billion, compounded almost $80 billion over the last 8 years? What have we gotten for that? We've gotten more mess air. We've gotten higher property taxes. The people in Illinois can't afford to live here. Businesses can't afford to do business here, and they're leaving. So we've got work to do, but it all resides into our budget and the spending and the failure of. And when we get in and delve in that, and we lower property taxes, I think we're going to see a better Illinois. We do have a bright future ahead of us, but it needs to start now. It needs to start a year from now instead of 5 more years from now.
We're talking with Darren Bailey, a Republican candidate for Illinois governor. Obviously, we'll have to go more in depth about some of the policy issues you have here, including how do you lower property taxes. But Darren, we'll have to wait for another time to really get into the weeds there. But because we're still,
I'm ready for that when that time comes.
We're still early in this process, right? I mean, you guys haven't even officially filed nominating petitions yet, so there's a lot of time left before that March primary. But you've got other candidates that are running for the Republican nomination. You having done so in 2022, one question I saw live listeners yesterday ask when we reviewed some of your launch, speech. What did you learn from 2022 that you're going to use in 2026 against J.B. Pritzker, were you to get the nomination?
Voter turnout. At 6:58 p.m. on November 8th, 2022, when AP News called the race, we were shocked. And as we got a hold of AP News and said, okay, what's going on? Because we think you're wrong. They knew that there was going to be about a 40% voter turnout. there turned out being closer to a 45% voter turnout. But they also knew that with J.B. Pritzker's $35 million get out the vote incentive, that those Democrats supporting him had sent their ballots in earlier, so he had the bottom third packed. We've got the votes to win, and we also know now where we need to go, and it's in Cook County, the collar counties, and a few other places, and we need to get the Republican Party to fill all the precincts. We just need to simply get out and do the legwork to inspire people, to let them realize. We hear it all the time. My vote doesn't count. Chicago, it's rigged. That's rubbish. Do your American duty. Show up to vote. Vote early, show up to your courthouse, mail your vote in, because far too many people are missing that day at the polls. So we know that we're going to hit the ground running with that come election time, and we know where we need to be focusing our time at, where there is terribly low voter turnout. People, things look completely different than they did 4 years ago. The tax burden has increased immensely. We're still talking safety. Our schools are failing. People know what the problems are, and they are more of a burden today than they were 4 years ago. So it's obvious in front of us. We just got to get people to show up and vote, and I believe we will.
Campaign finance also obviously is going to be an issue with Pritzker. I think saw nearly $350 million he's spent on his own campaign since 2018. This week, we also learned Richard Uihlein giving to Ted Dabrowski. He gave you $12 million in 2022. How are you going to fund your campaign, not just through the primary, but also heading into a potential general election?
We're talking to donors every day. Donors see the possibilities. They're excited. But more so, Illinois is now on the national stage. 4 years ago, it was difficult because people just passed over California, Illinois, and New Jersey. But with J.B. Pritzker and his presidential ambitions, we've got a lot more people that we're talking to and working with. So just stay tuned on that, and you'll see that coming up in the near future.
Darren Bailey with us. Finally here, I just get reaction from people for a month and a half or so on this. Governor J.B. Pritzker was down in Southern Illinois weeks ago, and just unrelated events. He's talking about Southern Illinois and the Coin County Fair and so. Somebody asked him about the movement to split the state into two, and the governor, he said, if people don't want to stick around to make the state better, then get up and move. What's your reaction to the governor encouraging people to move, especially given the past, 10 of the past 11 years, Illinois' lost population?
Well, that's the absolute arrogance and pride of a billionaire governor who has absolutely nothing in common with 99.5% of the people paying taxes and working in the state of Illinois. This man has no idea what the life in Southern Illinois looks like. He has no idea of the problems that the residents of Harvey, Illinois are going through. So he's used his money to prop him up with power. And I think those days are coming to an end because people are, that rhetoric is absolute nonsense. It's a slap in the face to everyone who is struggling in the state of Illinois. And that's another reason why I think we're going to win and things are going to shift in 2026.
Darren Bailey will obviously be talking with you in the weeks ahead as we've got the March primary just around the corner, and we'll get the official list of who's going to be on the ballot for the Republican primary for governor sometime after the filing period closes. So greatly appreciate you taking the time with us, and we'll talk again soon, all right?
Thank you for the time.
Absolutely. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop with you each and every weekday morning here. So be sure to stay tuned and subscribe and be with us. Get the headlines in your inbox each and every weekday morning. Go to thecentersquare.com. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, and we're going to keep you posted as much as we can. So go to thecentersquare.com. That's all I got for you today. It's only Tuesday, right? Tomorrow's Wednesday. Tons of stuff to cover today. Governor's got multiple events. There's Republicans lined up to respond to the possibility of military troops coming to Chicago. You even got some conversations about nuclear energy that are going to be happening. So we're going to do what we can to cover it all for you so you can get on with your day and trust on the Center Square to get you what you need to know at thecentersquare.com. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. And we'll see you back here tomorrow morning for more Illinois in Focus Daily.